Hi, my name is Mark Powell. I do work at Medtronic. And my little thing, I tested all of this while I was sitting, and it didn't work. Try this again. All right. So my talk today is a little bit about human-centered design at Medtronic. So first I'll talk about, so Manny was really interesting. He kind of covered a little bit about who Medtronic is. So started in the 1940s by Earl Bakken. He showed some of these slides, so he did some of my work also. But we've gone way beyond that now. Beyond pacemakers, we've got medical equipment, diabetes, deep brain stimulation, pain, a bunch of that sort of stuff. So it's amazing to kind of see where Medtronic has grown over the last 60 plus years. So how did I get to Medtronic? So believe it or not, I graduated high school from Japan. My dad was in the Army, and so we lived in Japan for a couple of years, and that's where I graduated high school from. I loved physics class and geometry. I'm a very visual thinker, and so being able to approach math from that perspective helped out a lot. I'm not a very trigonometry or calculus kind of person, but that was really great for me. I thought I was going to be a news broadcaster. I really you'll see when I went to J school. I loved being a lifeguard, so there I am looking pretty awesome as a 17-year-old. And my football coach named me Baby Giraffe because I was all knees and elbows and stuff when I ran. So that was a pretty awesome nickname to have. When I came back to the States, I went to the University of Kansas, Rock Chalk Jayhawk, big basketball school. I love that. And I went to the journalism school. And the reason I bring that up is there's been a lot of talk today about people who have engineering degrees or science, math, computer science, stuff like that. That's not my background. My background is in journalism, and what I really learned there was how to tell a story, how to listen to people, how to consolidate it down, and figure out what is the inside truth to that, and to be able to communicate that out. And I also played a lot of ultimate frisbee, so there's graduation there with my bros, and I love ultimate frisbee. I still play a couple of pickup games a week, so maybe I'll catch you on the frisbee field. But then the other half of the equation. Awesome. Okay, what is human-centered design? So that's what I do daily at Medtronic. So human-centered design, and actually Bruce brought this up too, is that empathy part. It's putting the people at the middle of the project you're working on. And a lot of times when you are a smart person and you see a solution, you're like, this is a great solution. I just have to make sure it works in this problem I'm going to go out there and find. But this is really try to understand the people and the problems they're having, and then work towards building that solution. So it follows a process that kind of goes along this perspective, where the first part is empathy, and that's getting out there and understanding. Defining is an important part because you can uncover a lot of issues, but defining is figuring out what are the right ones for you to solve. There are some things that just maybe don't make sense for you as that person to solve. Ideate is the fun part where you go out and figure out how you're going to do it. And then the big part of prototyping and testing is taking it back out and getting those people to really try it in their real hands. So I'm going to jump into our project. Ghana is a West African country, really close to the Ivory Coast, of about 30 million people. And there was an underlying issue of hypertension or high blood pressure. You want to hit that next one? And so there's a lot of problems that hypertension leads to. So when you have high blood pressure, it puts you at greater risk for stroke, for heart disease, and stuff like that. And out of the 30 million people that are there, 30% have hypertension. And then even within the people who have hypertension, only 3% of those people are well managed. So it's a really big issue. So what we did is we went in and talk to the people on the ground. And so this is a hypertension clinic in Ghana, and we tried to figure out where are the areas that we can be helpful. What is the right problems that we're trying to solve? And we spent a lot of time talking directly to patients, to providers, the doctors, the clinicians that are in the clinic, and other people in the community like the pharmacy workers to understand what is this whole universe that we're dealing with. And then the next step is defining that. So it's coming back and trying to unpack and build out those pieces of what did we learn, what are the opportunities, how can Medtronic have an impact on these sorts of people? And so after you go through definition, it's time to come up with ideas. And so this is our team as they're working on different ways to prototype. And for me, this is one of the most fun things that we do, is trying to figure out all of the steps of the process. And so when you build a prototype, you can't just leave blanks. A lot of times you want to try to act through all those different pieces to build out what does the solution look like without having just waving your hands around some piece of it. And so this is the solution we came up with. So I think it's, like I said, it's really cool that Sean went right before me, because pharmacy is an important part of our solution. So the patient management plan is what typically happens today, in that a physician has a patient who has hypertension. What's new is that we did blood pressure checks away from the hospital as we put them in pharmacies, because there's a lot of pharmacies that are underutilized, but yet they're dispersed throughout the community. So you can have people be able to be available to do these blood pressure checks more often. And then we created a new piece of software that sits in the middle. So in the past, you'd have to go to your doctor's office to get your blood pressure checked, because that's the only spot where they were able to keep a record of it. So we wrote a new set of software that the pharmacy uses to record on their mobile device. It gets saved and sent to the doctor's office so they can get more often blood pressure checks. And that way they can keep that management going for these patients and keep them at a more managed level. And then the last part is, back at the pharmacy, they can send those prescriptions back, and if they need to have something that's updated, the physician can do it essentially without having that patient come in and visit them. And so it's really extending out the opportunity to manage many, many more of these patients. So this is an example of when I was talking about prototyping. Is it doesn't have to be super complicated, and some of you in some of industrial tech have seen some of this stuff, but it's just making a drawing, trying to fit all the pieces together and thinking through what does your solution look like. And then the last part is going out and actually testing it with people. So once again, just paper drawings, we're working with somebody, we're just showing them that kind of stuff and going through. And so then the last part is, we've taken this started with just hypertension in clinics, and now we're extending it out so people can have the monitoring device on their personal phone. We're adding an additional thing like women who are pregnant with hypertension, which adds a whole other layer of complexity, but we just updated the software to do that. And the last part is we're doing it for diabetes now. So we've built this understanding of how to attack these kind of problems, started with a smaller solution and then begin to scale out on it. So that's what I wanted to show you about. Thank you for your time.
So how many people today learned that high blood pressure is also called hypertension? Excellent. So I think we have time for a couple of questions. We'll start here.
Yeah, so you talked about how your favorite part of the process is ideate.
Yeah, ideate and prototype.
Exactly. So how do you work past if you get stuck, work past the writer's block, but I guess inventing block?
Yeah. So a couple of ways that we have to get past that are, usually when you go out and you get that empathy, you already start to think of a bunch of new stuff. Another piece that we really use is called adjacent industries. So we'll find other companies or industries that do the type of thing we want to do well and try to understand how they're doing it well. So you could say, how would Amazon approach this problem if Amazon were responsible for it? How would Uber do this sort of thing if they were responsible for it? And that way it kind of pushes you beyond what you typically would have thought of, and you can even do different stuff. And then there's actually different card decks and some other stuff that you can kind of get a brain kick. All right, what's up?
I might have missed this, but do you know what causes the hypertension in Ghana and Kenya?
I'm not a medical doctor, but it is just underlying physiology, and I don't have an exact answer for you on that, but yeah.
And did we have one more question?
Oh, yeah, I think we had one up here. I could just repeat it too.
Oh, yeah. How do you believe that your background in a non-technical discipline set you apart?
So the question was, how does my non-technical background set me apart? So I think, like I said, when I went to school for journalism. But what was interesting is I actually didn't like reporting. I liked storytelling, because reporting is a lot of calling people on the phone and getting interviews and going out and meeting and doing all that stuff. And that didn't really interest me, but I liked telling the story of how to put it together, which is, you can kind of see I use a different slide presentation format than other people. But I like trying to understand what is the underlying thing that needs to be told. And communication is a really big part of that in all of these different disciplines. So a lot of what I do today is help people who are in technical roles help to tell their story, or to have the people who are working with, the patients, the physicians or whatever, understand what they're trying to say and communicate that back to the people that are in the technical role. So it's being able to understand kind of both of those parts and apply it as needed.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. Fantastic presentation. Let's thank Mark one more time. Well, thank you very much. Well, thank you very much. We've really enjoyed presenting to you today. I hope that you've enjoyed hearing us present. And this concludes our session.